Hey, what's up, guys? Blaine Duncan here from Halloween Lives, the podcast of Michael Myers, joined week after week by my brother Austin. Welcome to episode number 71. 71. Fucking A. God damn it. Let me start that fucking thing over again. What's up, guys? Blaine Duncan here from Halloween Lives, the podcast of Michael Myers, joined week after week by my brother Austin. Welcome to episode number 78. How you doing tonight?
I'm doing good, man. It's a very important number to this community, number 78, and we hope we don't let you down today on such an exciting number, man. It is crazy though to think about for 78, and let's, we've done a couple double episodes in 1 week. We've missed some weeks, so let's be kind and say 72, 73 straight weeks. We have been making this show happen damn near weekly, and it's crazy to be at number 78. So welcome to everybody who's watching and listening.
That's right. And good job last week on the episode, the solo episode. You created that monstrosity.
Yes.
Do you want to talk about that for just a second? Because we did get a pretty interesting message, or you got an interesting message about that monstrosity.
I have not talked to this person and asked if I could share their name, but if they are open to it, I will share it in the next episode. But we did get a message from somebody in the show or in last week's episode. I had said, hey, I'm doing this. If anybody's interested in sculpting this and sending us a mask, I will put it behind me in the display somewhere around here for every single episode, so long as this show goes on. Lo and behold, and I said that, kind of in jest. I didn't think anybody would take me up on the offer, but I know that we have so many creative people that watch this show, so I thought maybe, we'll see. Lo and behold, about 2 nights after the episode dropped, I got a message online saying, hey, if I have your permission, I'd love to use that that picture as inspiration and make that mask for you guys. And I was like, my permission to make my dreams come true? Yes, take it, do it, whatever you want. So yeah, super cool. Hopefully at some point during the show, you're going to see some just wild, wacky Michael Myers mask here behind me. That is directly a work of this show. It'll be really cool, man. And thank you to that person. That means a lot. It's crazy community we have here.
Yeah, very, very supportive and obviously very cool. And hopefully that works out, because I would love to see that thing. It can just be known officially as the Halloween Lives mask. Maybe someday we'll get a film that's called Halloween Lives, but for now it's the Halloween Lives podcast mask. That would be just really cool to see. So yeah, good job on the episode last week. Real quick, before we get into tonight's episode as well, wanted to mention we unfortunately lost a member of the Halloween franchise community today, or within the last 24 hours, as of the recording of this episode. Charles Cyphers, who played Sheriff Brackett, unfortunately passed away at the age of 85. He was supposed to be out at Halloween 45. He was definitely going to be somebody who I was going to meet and get their autograph on my mask. And unfortunately, that just didn't happen. And Charles passed away. So, thoughts and prayers out to his family and to, anybody else who's affected by that. Just an awesome guy from what I understand, and seeing a lot of memorials and tributes to him online. It sounds like, he sort of disappeared from the limelight for a long time. And Sean Clark was actually the one, I think, kind of brought him back in and exposed him to this whole new world of, horror conventions and these kind of things. So for those of you who had the opportunity to meet Charles Cyphers, consider yourselves lucky. It's unfortunate again. And we are at the point where this movie is, it's 45 years old. And unfortunately, more of these people are just going to start kind of dropping off. So if you've not had an opportunity to meet your favorite characters from that franchise, you got to get out and do it. Not to sound grim and dark, but for God's sakes, the thing is 45 years old, and some of these people aren't spring chickens anymore. So, rest in peace to Charles Cyphers, the OG Sheriff Brackett from Halloween 1978. So we're going to get into tonight's episode. We did an episode similar to this regarding Halloween Ends and the novelization, how the novelization was different than the actual movie that we saw. Well, tonight we're going to kind of work our way backwards a little bit, and we're going to go to the Halloween Kills, and we're going to talk just a few things here and there about how it was different than the movie. Now, I want to put it out there. I have not officially read this book yet. I do have it. It's sitting right back here on my shelf. I've had it for, several years now. I think I bought you it for Christmas one year.
It's in here somewhere. I can't read. So,
right. Yeah, I just agreed. I can't read, and there's not enough pictures in it for me. That's why the new Halloween 78 novelization is great, because it's got pictures. I can follow it and understand what's going on. But we are going to be relying on a Reddit user, and I might as well just give them a shout out, because I would hate to steal their work. And it is Chase the Bodu. I don't know if that's. I'm not going to worry about it too much, because I'm sure they're not watching the show. If you are, I apologize if I just mangled your name. But that is where we're at. So we're going to talk a little bit tonight about how the book, the Halloween novelization, was different than the movie. We did see, when we did the Halloween Ends episode, and we talked about how it was different than the film. I think there were some things in it that made it better and worse at the same time. And I have not actually read through this yet. You and I were kind of talking about, hey, what are we doing this week? What are we going to do this week? And I believe it was you who mentioned, hey, let's do this. Go back to the book series and the novelizations and talk about some of the differences. And I was able to find this post. So credit to this person for writing this up. But I'm going to be very interested to see as I read through this, because it's going to be my first time reading it as well, that would these changes have made it a better film, in my opinion? Because as we've talked about, I'm not the biggest, Kills fan, but it's a Halloween film, and I love it nonetheless. So, should we just get right into this thing?
Yeah, man, I'm excited too, as kind of a critic of Halloween Kills too, and I've heard people online say, I wish Halloween Ends did what the book did. I would have liked that movie more. I'm hoping I can be one of those people in that camp for Halloween Kills. So I'm going into this very optimistic.
Let's do it. Okay, so the book begins from Michael's point of view in the last moments of Halloween 2018. He's in the burning basement looking up at Laurie, Karen, and Allison from behind the bars at the entrance. He thinks of Laurie as, quote, she who will not die. The shape is incapable of feeling anything. This is a direct quote from the book. The shape of is incapable of feeling anything as he gazes into her eyes, but something stirs inside him. A need for what? Completion, closure, perhaps, or maybe it's simply a need to see the life fade in those eyes, those stubborn eyes, to watch them become cold and empty like his. So, we get that in the film, right? I mean, we see this sort of this stare down, but it's interesting that the movie, obviously, we don't necessarily see that, right? We don't see this long stare down. It's kind of all post as the fire's going on. They're driving away in the back of the truck, so that part of it is interesting. It goes on to say it's noted that he feels the heat of the flames, but they don't affect him. Again, another quote. He feels heat on his back, smells smoke in the air, but neither sensation alarms him. They mean no more to him than the pain of the injuries he sustained this night during this hunt. So kind of cool to sort of get a little bit of a deeper feeling or understanding where his head was at specifically, because going back to watching 2018 for the first time, 2018 for the first time, you're like, man, how's he going to get out of this? He's literally trapped in this burning building. This is how it's going to end for the boogeyman. So it's kind of cool to see that whole thing come into play.
Yeah, it's interesting too. And I think so far, one thing that I did criticize the Ends book for doing a little bit was getting a little too into what happens behind the mask of Michael Myers, where this feels like, kind of what the audience would infer just watching the end of 2018. But yeah, no, it's it's cool to see, you know, even with the flames and the smoke, he's focused on one thing. And She Who Will Not Die is kind of an awesome name for Laurie Strode as well.
Yeah, I really think that is cool, and it once again, it just goes to show like where his mind was at, and that he was just so focused on killing this woman, and he's not able to do that, right? Because she's just outsmarting him and outplaying him. So, okay, so this article goes on to kind of talk about that basically the entire book is from that point on is almost similar word for word to the movie, which is really interesting, because we saw a lot of changes with ends, but it's very similar until we get to the end of the film. So I guess the primary focus of this article, and again, this is the first time I'm reading it, so the primary focus of this article is going to be specifically on how Halloween Kills ends. Okay. So the major point comes near the end. After Karen stabs him in the back with the pitchfork, she rips off his mask. And it's noted that when Allison sees his face, she thinks, quote unquote, he's just an old man, like he's not so dangerous with his mask off. And as Karen starts taunting him with the mask, he's described as being weaker and feeling the pain of his injuries. So again, no real surprise necessarily with that quote, because I think, you know, Michael gets his ass kicked in Halloween Kills, and we see that we see him be slow to move, and that's the thing that, you know, so many people have criticized Michael when it comes to Halloween Ends and how he's slow moving and he's just beat up and he's like this old man. And it's like, yeah, but you got to remember, this dude literally got like destroyed in Halloween Kills, and he never, you know, was able to get medical attention. He wasn't, you know, it's not like he went into surgery and fixed his wounds. These were all natural healing. You know, he just had to go through this natural healing process. So for him to be moving a little bit slow at 61, 62 years old, whatever he was supposed to be, after getting his ass kicked, it's completely understandable. So little tangent, I guess, there regarding Halloween Ends. Did you have something?
Yeah, I was just going to say, what I do like about what they're already setting up here was something that was set up in Halloween 2018, in the very first scene of the power of that mask. You know, I like that it's not necessarily like the mask itself has superpowers. We're not dealing with a silver shamrock, you know, prop. But there is something psychologically that happens to Michael when he slips on the mask. So I do like that little tidbit of just like the mask was removed and he feels a little more or a little less powerful. I think, right, you know, the audience kind of sees that, but it is cool to kind of hear that playing out.
I guess for me personally, you know, I've always looked at Michael Myers as, and I think Rob Zombie did a really good job. If I can give Rob Zombie credit for anything, I think he did a really good job of giving us this impression that Michael felt safer behind the mask. The mask didn't necessarily give him power, but it protected him in some strange way, whether that be, you know, supernatural in some films or not. The mask gave him a power and sort of this bravado in a way to go out there and just like be willing to take a freaking, you know, shotgun round to the chest because he is the boogeyman. So I agree with you. It's interesting how they're kind of setting this up. This whole thing goes on to say, and this is a quote from the book, he swayed unsteadily, but didn't fall. And then he began to limp toward Allison's mother. Karen backed toward the front door, holding the mask out in front of her like a lure, taunting Michael with it. She backed out onto the porch, and Michael, moving weakly but steadily, followed. And then it goes on. Michael stepped over the pitchfork and began making his way down the steps. Karen backed across the lawn, still holding out Michael's mask, him following her, his gaze fixed upon his other face, his true face, as if it were a magic talisman with a irresistible hold on him. See, I can't read. I don't know. Talisman.
Hold on.
Talisman. See, this is why I don't read. I don't know these big words. Magic talisman.
Okay. No, this is a stupid word.
It is a stupid word.
It's a stupid word. It means an object, typically an inscribed ring or stone, that is thought to have magic powers and to bring good luck. Stupid. Why are we throwing out Harry Potter spells in the middle of this book? Go on. Don't beat yourself up on that.
So as if it were a magic talisman with an irresistible hold on him. Okay, so once again, we're not crossing the supernatural line here, but we are saying this mask does something for him. It creates something in him that is, it drives him in a way and allows him to be something more. So, again, the article goes on and says, and he follows her through the back streets. His feelings about the mask become clearer. Okay, so this is again a quote. The shape hurts, but pain means nothing to him, whether it's his own or someone else's. There's only one thing that's important to him now: regaining his face. He feels the cool night air on his skin, and he finds the sensation revolting. His true face protects him from the outer world, helps him control the storm that rages inside him. It gives him focus, purpose. Without it, he has diminished. With it, he's unstoppable. I love that. I like that.
I think they were so quick to jump that supernatural fence in Halloween Ends novelization. I like this because it's not necessarily giving us too much detail on Michael. I feel like this definitely rides the line for me. But you can't really argue with, as soon as his mask is ripped off, he's not trying to kill Allison, who's right next to him, anymore. Right. He's dead set on getting back his mask. And I like that they have mentioned now a couple times, this is his true face. And it's hard to argue even with 1978 about that, because the first thing we see Michael do is pull down his clown mask. There's something about it. And kind of like what that's saying is it allows him to kind of be something beyond himself. And we've talked about it most recently in the Michael versus Jason video. Michael is definitely about scaring people, not just murdering them. And I think that mask takes him to that kind of otherworldly level, and he knows it deep within. That's what the novel seems to suggest.
For sure. It goes on to say, he emerges from between the houses, crosses a lawn, finds himself standing on a sidewalk, and there, waiting for him in the middle of the street, is his face. He stands there for a moment, head cocked to the side, contemplating. This does not seem right to him, but there is no way he can resist the call of his face, nor does he wish to. And so he steps into the street and starts towards it. So again, not much different necessarily to the film, but it is giving just a little bit of a backstory, I guess, or a deeper dive or deeper detail into what's going through Michael's head at this time, which is really interesting, because I think that's the thing that the novelizations are able to do that you don't get from a film. You can assume what is going through Michael's head when you see certain things, but to have it actually be written out in front of you of, this is what he's thinking, this is what he's seeing, this is what he wants to do. Those are all things that we're not necessarily, used to having those details on, right? I mean, to say, when Michael saw Laurie Strode in 1978, he was watching her, from the window, or watching her from looking out the window, it's like, he's watching her, he sees her, but to then kind of step back and go like, but what is he actually thinking? And in these novelizations, that's what you're getting like what he's actually thinking. I don't know if I like it, I don't know if I don't like it, but that is something that just a different thing that we don't get by watching the films, as we get this in the movie or the books. So very interesting. Okay, the article then goes back, and that's where we start to get the part where the mob reveals themselves and surround him. One difference from the movie is that in addition to the mob in the street, all the porch lights from the houses on each side come on, and people come out of their houses to stand on their front lawns and watch as the mob beats Michael, which they immediately start doing before he has the chance to pick up his mask. So I'm trying to think, in the film, he puts the mask on and then they beat the shit out of him, right?
I'm almost positive, to the point where I'm looking up like Michael versus the mob, because that was my first thought too. was
I'm like 99% sure he reaches down. There's that shot of him reaching down. And he picks up the mask and he puts it on, and then it's like game time, and they start kicking the shit out of him.
You are correct. I just watched it really, really quick, and yeah, he picks it up and he's kind of like, "All right, let's do this." Before they start attacking him, so that's interesting. It was more like a mouse trap in the book. It sounds like
right. Yeah, and he wasn't able to actually get his mask before they started on that. Okay, the book goes on to say, then they came for the shape, striking with their weapons, raining blow after blow upon him, faces aflame with savage delight. The shape goes down under the assault, hits the ground, loses the knife. Karen steps forward, snatches it, and slams the blade into his back. She leaves it there as she straightens, grim satisfaction on her face. "We got this, Karen," Tommy says. "Go be with your daughter." The shape sees the woman nod to Tommy. She leaves, heading back toward the shape's home. He wants to follow her, but the crowd falls upon him again, a raging tornado of vigilante justice. So once again, we're getting more detail on what Michael is seeing and what he's hearing. And it's just that little, like, if you hadn't seen this movie yet, but you're reading the book first, that's a little sort of nugget of, okay, Michael knows where she's going, because the last place Michael saw Allison at was at his former childhood home, the Myers residence.
Yeah, no, that's interesting. And it's, I don't know, it's interesting to get just kind of like what you said, just a nugget of information on what Michael is going through in that moment. And still, like the Michael I love, he's being strategic. And I think like that's something you just can't do with a silent character in a movie, is give any of that information. And like stuff like that, I think is completely fair. I don't get upset about the lore of it all, knowing a little bit too much about Michael or anything. Yeah, he heard she's going back to the house. He's going to remember that. That's going to be an important factor for, because he's not giving up yet. He's like, as soon as I'm done with this, I'm going to go kill her. Right. That's his plan.
It's a little preview into what you're about to see. So Karen goes back to the house to be with Allison. The EMTs arrive, etc. And the scene cuts back to the mob and Michael. So again, we're going to go back to a quote from the book. "The shape has sustained so much physical damage that even he feels it. And the pain is an alien sensation to him, one for which he has no name. He does not like it. His attackers are blurs of motion around him, a series of fragmented images, hate-filled eyes, bared teeth, hands wrapped tight around weapons. He hears sounds as well, feet shuffling, rapid breathing, grunts of efforts, incentives in, oh God, big words.
You got it. It's not talisman, is it?
No, I'm going to just say weapons. I'm going to say weapons because I know that's what it means. Weapons hurled at him that doesn't work. Weapons hurled at him as if they're weapons themselves. And of course, he hears the solid, meaty thud of the blows landing on his body, one after another without let up. The shape senses something then, a familiar, welcome presence. He turns his head to the side and finds himself looking at his other face, his real face, lying on the asphalt, forgotten by the crowd. Blood pools from the ground between them, his blood, but it is of no importance. His face is just out of reach, but if he can stretch his hand far enough, the 3 fingers remaining on his left hand brush the mask's edge, fumble at it, finally getting a grip. He yanks his face towards him, drawing it through his blood, and in a single fluid motion, he slips the gore-slicked mask over his head and springs to his feet. He draws in a deep breath, feeling the pain of his injuries recede. He is strong again. He is whole. His attackers pull back in surprise, shocked that the cowering creature that they'd been in the process of killing now stands before them, pain-free and unafraid. Tommy is the first to recover, and he steps forward and swings his bat. The nails wet with the shape's blood. The shape merely looks at Tommy as the bat strikes his head. He doesn't feel the blow. He doesn't feel anything. So again, we're getting more detail, which is really interesting. This article might be a little bit, and we might be sort of transitioning a little bit in the show kind of on the fly. This article said it was about differences in the from the book to the movie, but this is maybe more just about more detail that's in the book. Of course, some differences, but maybe just more detail as to what was going through Michael's head and in some of these scenes.
Well, I think it's really interesting the way that they did the mask thing, by having him not have the mask when he got his ass beat. and have kind of that, definitely not a come to God for Michael Myers, but a come to God moment where he reaches out for that mask, and that's when the tides turn. I think that is really a interesting way to do it with Michael, who's clearly looking for some way to come back in this fight. That mask serves as his kind of confidence.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, for sure. And I think that's the mask is such an important piece of this franchise, and that's what we have to keep in mind here, is that no matter whether you get a new director in to make a film or a writer in to write the book, they all have an understanding that there's a great importance with the mask, that Michael is the mask and the mask is Michael. Like they're one and the same, because we've never seen them really truly separated. We saw it happen obviously a few times in the David Gordon Green trilogy. We saw some attempts throughout some of other movies where Michael's mask was taken off at some point, but they are one and the same. They are connected at the hip. Michael is his mask, and the mask is Michael. But I think what's most interesting to me about that whole thing is, to me, we've talked about Halloween Kills as, to me, Halloween Kills crosses the supernatural line, in my opinion, as far as it shows me that because of the damage and the injuries and things like that Michael did sustain in this film, that he is not a normal man, right? He's not normal. No way could somebody be absolutely beaten to hell like he is, shot, stabbed, beat with a toaster, whatever it was the iron, beat with an iron. Like, the dude gets his ass absolutely kicked. But maybe, and I'm just, there you go right there. Yeah. Maybe not so. Were you going to do something?
No. I was bringing it up, and then I think there's a slight lag because you didn't react, and I was like, oh, that's not fucking funny. And I put it right back down.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, there is. I think there's a little bit of a lag going on here. But I guess the point that I'm trying to make is that watching the film, it did seem to cross a supernatural barrier for me. But reading this, I almost look at Michael's mask as it's his muse, it's his it's what drives him, right? And maybe the mask isn't supernatural, and maybe Michael's not supernatural, but that mask being what it is to him is almost like an extra boost of energy, or it's like him pounding a freaking energy drink, and it just gives him that extra strength. It doesn't make him supernatural, but it does kind of take him to a different level that he's not operating like a man. You and I could not do that, right? We're not driven by a mask. But if in this case, the way that they're describing this, if he is that sort of fascinated with this mask, and that mask is his true face or his real face, whatever they've looked at it as, or whatever they've written it as, maybe that is what's giving him that extra added strength, is what is driving him, not from a supernatural aspect, but it's just what gives him that extra, energy and whatever he has to do to sort of muster up, or guster that energy, whatever you want to say, to go out and do what he needs to do to fulfill his killing goals, I guess. I don't know, it's just interesting.
Yeah, I think obviously there's kind of one consistency with Michael Myers, and he's always got a mask on for whatever reason, and the idea that somehow the energy necessary, or that the mask is part of his process that he can't really operate without, I feel like that's not crossing a line for me. Not that the mask, again, to your point, not that the mask has any superpowers, not that there's anything supernatural going on, but when he puts on that mask, he's more than Michael Myers. He is the shape. And, I think that the themes that they're kind of making work here play into Halloween Ends and what eventually happens to Corey Cunningham down the line as well. Not a supernatural thing, but just the mantra of what comes with donning that mask, I think is a totally different beast.
I agree. So the article there's not much left of the article, but there are some things to talk about. So I'm going to read, this is what the author wrote in this article. And thus he proceeds to kill Tommy and then the rest of the mob and everyone else who is watching all run back into their homes and lock their doors, praying that the boogeyman doesn't come after them next. So there you have it. Like I said, it's clear that the mask gives him his strength, at least seemingly superhuman strength, and keeps him from feeling pain. There's no indication that the mask is definitely supernatural, but I'd say the possibility is left open. Or it could just be that the mask is something that triggers his insane evil bloodlust. Like that's why he was docile for 40 years. He was in the asylum, but the podcasters brought the mask to him and he felt the proximity up to the mask and he snapped out of his haze or out of his daze. So he escaped and tracked them down and got his mask back so that he could start killing again. That is interesting because now we're tying back to 2018 where he was sort of just this subdued, basically prisoner at that point. But when they held that mask up, or when, Aaron held that mask up and was like, say something, before he said that, you get that scene where he kind of like looks over his shoulder and he doesn't need to see the mask, but he knows it's there. And I think that's kind of cool and sort of draws back into this.
Well, and it's interesting too, now that I'm thinking about, like, my thing is I'm always trying to tie this back to 1978, make sure everything kind of like aligns with John Carpenter's vision. At the end of the opening scene in 1978, Michael walks out of the Myers house wearing the mask, where he's found by his parents. As soon as they lift up that mask from him, Michael is frozen, and he does become clearly docile enough to be taken into a car, because yes, I know he's a child, a 6-year-old boy, but he is, under the guise of the shape. He has completely flipped that switch by that point in the movie, even as a small boy. So there is something about him being able to cover his face and hide who maybe he originally was, whatever the philosophy is behind it, which I'm glad we don't know. There's something about once that mask comes off that he loses part of himself and he's like more vulnerable. And that I like that is continued here in Halloween Kills, the novelization, that it's kind of a little bit more genuinely put out there that, yeah, Michael needed that and it becomes almost, kind of dazed and confused like you're talking about without it. And, obviously there's ways that could be taken in Halloween Ends as well. But I think that this is kind of like expanding into the story in a way that I'm completely comfortable with. To the Reddit, creator's point, it doesn't outright create anything supernatural, but it leaves it open to the interpretation of the viewer, which I think is very John Carpenter to do. Overall, I love what this had to do with the mask, and I think it was brought up in Halloween 2018. Like I said, it kind of ties back to 1978. And, it doesn't answer any kind of viewers' questions, but it definitely keeps up themes that have been around for 45 years now.
Right. No, I totally agree with everything that you just said. And it's not too much. It's just enough. And I like that. Right. I mean, I think I've sort of referenced this in the past that, when you're trying to make a film, it's like baking a cake, right? You need a little bit of this and a little bit of that. You don't want to add too much salt. You don't want to add too much sugar. You need this recipe to be right. And I think in this case, that's what we're getting. Like the recipe is just right here for explaining his mask without giving away too much, and without leaving it too much up to interpretation of the reader, or the viewer in the film. I think that's where we get this, it's really perfect. The article ends with, I'll also add that the book uses the original theatrical ending. So for anybody who doesn't know, if you're watching this and you don't know that the ending was different originally, there was a completely different ending for how Halloween Kills ends. And I'm going to read through that real quick and then we can talk about it very briefly. After Michael kills Karen, no, it's not explained how Michael snuck into the house past everyone who was up put front, and Karen just went into the room out of morbid curiosity. We've talked about this, like how Karen get inside, so we talked about this, and clearly the book doesn't explain it any better. So Michael kills Karen, and then Lori calls Karen's cell phone from the hospital. But Michael picks up the phone, and when Lori hears him breathing, she instantly realizes what happened and says, "I'm coming for you, Michael." She grabs a big knife and walks out of the hospital. Don't know if I like it better or worse than the ending that we got. The only thing I will say about it is we had zero interaction between Lori and Michael in this entire film. None whatsoever. If you watch it from start to finish, those two never truly interact. We got all kinds of like audio and video issues going on here.
I think I know where you left it off, is that we didn't see any Michael and Lori interactions. Just nod if I'm on the right track. Okay, got a thumbs up. That's how much of a lag we got.
We're so delayed here. We're so delayed.
It's pretty rough. But yeah, I would say it is interesting that, for a film where, we finally got Jamie Lee Curtis back, and we, are continuing this story where Jamie Lee Curtis and Laurie Strode are going to be put at the centerfold of these films. It's interesting to me that they did make the creative choice. Now, this is before, I believe this was filmed before COVID, but we ended up having a film where these two don't interact at all. Kind of the main draw to it. Now, you could say it is leading up to Halloween Ends, but ultimately, it's definitely it's definitely a bummer that we didn't get to see that part of the film. But overall, I do enjoy the changes that were made for this book, and or I guess the creative decisions that were made in this book. So I don't know, maybe it does take it up a bit for me as far as what I wanted out of this film. If you guys kind of think the same, or if you wish, or I guess if you think the movie maybe did it a little bit better, let us know in the comments below. But for now, these two laggy sons of bitches are going to go gear up and get ready for next week, because clearly we got some audio technical difficulties. Michael Myers put Bucky into the electric systems of the Minnesota power grid. We've got issues, to say the least. And, it's very rare that in an episode with Blaine right here that I'm going to close this out and take us to the promised land. But this time around, I am going to do it. He's just going to sit there. He's going to nod. He's going to look gorgeous while he does it. But if you enjoyed this video, please make sure to hit the like below. If you want to see more of us, go ahead and hit that subscribe. It would make Blaine's day. He'd tell you all about it, but he can't talk. He's like Michael Myers without the mask. He's gone completely docile. Thank you guys so much for watching. My name is Austin Duncan. That is my brother Blaine, and we are super pumped to have you here on episode 78 of Halloween Lives, the podcast of Michael Myers. We will catch you next time. Blaine, what do you got to say? We're going to let this roll.